when it comes to CVs, I kind of know what recruiters are looking for, especially, and I also really strongly know what companies are looking for. So let's begin. Let me just. Okay, so there are people in the waiting room, which is coming up on my screen, Tracy.
So you can
Okay,
just
well,
admit.
ignore that for now.
Yeah, no, you can just admit on the top.
Okay.
I'm admitting.
So I've explained myself. I'm a freelance proofreader, 6 years experience, and a recruitment consultant for a small agency. So I know exactly what CV writing skills you need. Okay, so that's me and that's my name. Let's get started. So I think you may have seen in the advert that employers and recruiters generally spend 3 minutes at most looking at a CV. So they will get a whole pile of CVs. They're going to be looking for the CV that stands out, for the CV that's clear, concise, no mistakes, short and sweet and to the point. As soon as they find that, they'll move on. If they don't find it, they'll keep looking. So we need to ensure that everything on that CV is perfectly correct and that everything is included on that CV. So where do we start with a CV? In my view, there are 6 main things that we need to include, and I'm going to go through each one, and I invite questions at the end. If you have any questions, we'll wait until the end to do that. Okay, so the first thing that goes onto a CV is your personal details. Obviously, that comes first. That's most important. They're going to want to see you and who you are and what you bring to the table. So in personal details, we want your full name, so that's your name and your surname, your address, and no PO box addresses there. We just almost, it will say Kim Hatchuel, Hyde Park, Johannesburg. And the reason they ask for an address is if the position is in Fourways, they want to know, is that doable? Okay. Email address, they want to contact you, and obviously they want your number, generally your cell phone number. Professional photograph, I generally like to see, I want to see the professionalism of the person, if they come across as professional in their photograph, as opposed to sending me a selfie of their cell phone, that stands in good stead as well. And then obviously driver's license and own car. I want to see that you can get to the office, or that if the position is in sales, for example, that you can get there and that your car is reliable. If you don't have one, or if you've got a learner's license, or if you're working towards it, say that too. I often tell candidates, put it in rather than leaving it out, and then you'll be able to answer questions in an interview. Okay. The second thing is a personal statement. Now, I call it a personal statement as opposed to a cover letter. I'm not a fan of cover letters. A personal statement tells me about you, okay? It tells me your highest qualification, whether you've got a matric, you've got a degree, whether you're your honors. If you're studying towards something, I want to know all of that. And for the rest of it, the details are in your CV. So cover letters to Dear Sir, please find attached I'm not a fan of. Okay, so it's just a paragraph. Okay, so, and in that paragraph, please include your skills. So if you've done public speaking at school, if you've been part of the debate team, that counts as teamwork. If you know how to manage your time, if you've studied and passed your degree on Zoom in 2020, put that in. That's important. It shows me that you can manage your time. Okay, the third thing, and this is quite important, obviously, they're going to look at your qualifications. They want to see that what you have, if you say you've got a BCom, that you can do maths or accounting. And start with the most recent. So if in 2020 you finished your honors degree, put that in. If you finished matric, that comes at the top. Okay, so it will look something like this. It will say that you studied at Wits and you did a BCom accounting in 2020, and then you went to Sandringham High School in 2017 and you got your grade 12. You can put your subjects in if you like. If you are applying, for example, for an accounting position or a bookkeeping position, and you got a distinction in maths or accounting, put that in. They want to know that because that tells them that you've got the skills that they are looking for. Okay. Now, when I look at a CV, work experience to me is the most important thing. And bearing in mind that if you are applying for a job for the first time and you feel that you don't have full-time experience, please put in any part-time jobs you've had or those sorts of things. You start with your most recent position. When I look at CVs, I don't want to go, they finished school in 1997, their first position is at the top. Then I must scroll all the way to the bottom to see what their last job was. So put that at the top, the most recent position. And put in all the details. So put in your company, the company who you worked for, the dates of employment, the job title. You can also add if it was part-time or full-time, bearing in mind it all counts. Okay, and when it comes to work experience, please don't leave things out because it doesn't relate to the job that you're applying for. I would rather see that you worked for a year as a driver or a waiter or a waitress than not see anything and see a gap. And then I'm going to have to ask you a question. Why was there an 18-month gap? Well, actually, there wasn't. So put that all in, okay? So no gaps. And rather put everything in than leave it out, okay? So an example of the work experience where I worked for the Home of Hope, I was a volunteer. I didn't have a full-time job, but I was a volunteer. These are the things I did. So when I look at it, I'm receiving it, okay, she knows how to manage her time and space. Assisting with sorting and distribution of donated items. These are all office admin kind of positions. Answering the phone, I know that you'll have good communication skills. All right. So these sorts of things, even though it's a volunteer position, please put it in. Okay. And then the next position would be the position you had before the most recent one. So you worked at Cellmania as a shop assistant. So I kind of get that you can sell. If your position that you're applying for is in sales, I kind of understand that. Okay. I understand that you can speak to people. The admin part of it, record keeping and stock taking, if you're applying for those sorts of positions, that's important. But I will say at this point that if you didn't do something, rather don't say it. Don't say that you sold. I've had CVs before where they've mentioned that they did sales when actually they didn't. And then you're going to get to a job and they're going to ask you to do sales and you're not going to meet your targets. And then you're going to be surprised when it doesn't work out. So put things in that you've done. Don't make up to add up, to put in space. Okay, when it comes to skills, include things which are relevant to the job for which you're applying. If you're applying for a sales position, don't put in things that don't relate to sales. Don't put in marketing or don't put in answering the phone. You're not going to be expected to do that. Yes, you can do it, but it's not important for the job that you're applying. And again, don't list skills you don't have. So don't tell them you can do something when you know that you're fibbing, because you will get caught out in an interview. And if you don't get caught out in an interview, you're going to get caught out in the first month of working there. Okay. So an example, which is good to see. Okay. I'm applying for a job as a receptionist or a PA. I want to know that you can answer the phones, that you can do filing, that you can manage the diary. So I've said that I've done admin, okay? And then I've listed the skills that relate to admin, okay? And if there's any others, put any of those others in, okay? Customer service. They want to know that you can empathize with your customers, that you are adaptable, and that you can speak well. Because if you're going to be applying for a call center position, I want to know all those sorts of things, because I can empathize when I call a call center and I speak to someone who doesn't enunciate her words or his words. They don't understand my problems. So these are the sorts of things I'm going to look for in that particular CV, okay? And then IT skills. And IT skills don't only relate to applying for an IT position. I want to know that you can sit behind a computer and that you can work Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and that you can program in HTML. However, if you don't know PowerPoint, don't put it in. So don't put in Microsoft Office full stop, because Microsoft Office has Word, Excel, PowerPoint access. It has lots of stuff. The other thing on that note that I wouldn't put in is internet. Everybody knows how to use the internet. Don't add it in. They will look at it and think, oh, that person will surf on Facebook all day. So that's a given. We all know how to work emails. Don't put that in. Those are givens, okay? If you want to put in Microsoft Office, make sure that you know all of the, you see, and I haven't even added Access in there because, to be honest, I don't work on Access and I don't know it. So I wouldn't put it in my CV, okay? And then this is important, references, okay? References, I want to phone somebody or email somebody and ask them questions about your performance, okay? So the only people you've reported to. In my position as a recruiter, and for some of the companies I recruit for, they will not take a reference from a colleague, okay? So it has to be your line manager. If you don't have one, and if you don't have references, then note there that you don't have them. That's also okay, but don't put in landline numbers for those people. If I put in a CV, a cell phone number, you could pretend, or that referee could pretend that they are your manager, okay? Whereas a landline number for a company works a lot better because the switchboard will answer and put me through, okay? And this one is important. No references from family or friends. My mother and father are going to say the most amazing things about me, but it doesn't mean that that's a good reference unless you've worked for your family, unless you've worked for your dad's business or your friend's business, but don't list them as friends, okay? It doesn't work. Okay, so now we talk about the things that you don't put in a CV, okay? Interests and hobbies. To be honest, unless it's really relevant to the position you're applying for, I'm not really interested in what you do after hours. So hanging out with friends and spending time outdoors and mountain climbing, not interested. It doesn't belong on a CV, okay? That, in my opinion, doesn't belong on a CV either. And inappropriate personal information. So, for example, sexuality does not belong on a CV, or your choices. I want to see on your CV what I'm going to get in the office. I don't want to be involved in, a religion or sexuality or any of those sorts of things. It's not appropriate. So rather leave those sorts of things out. Okay. And also don't put in there that your health is perfect and you have no criminal offenses. As a recruiter, it is my job to put you through a criminal check, to send you for fingerprints. I'm not to take your word for the fact that you don't have any criminal offenses. And to be honest, if you did, would you put that on your CV? You probably wouldn't, right? Okay. Now, these things are important, okay? Spelling and punctuation, I think and grammar. I'll add grammar to that. So if it's not your forte, if English is not your first language, or if you know that you're rubbish at spelling, especially if you know that the position you're applying for relies on the fact that you can spell well. And there are lots of people who can help. I mean, not just me, family, friends, colleagues can help you with those sorts of things. Okay. In terms of page layout on a CV, for the type of positions and the type of people who are on this webinar, your CV should not be more than 3 or 4 pages long. If you don't have that much experience and if you've got a degree or a matric or whatever. No wasted space. Don't put a full page cover page with your name and the fact that it's a curriculum vitae and your photograph. It's a waste of space. And remember that that's going to waste time for the recruiter or the company to look at. Make it a small little headline that says, this is my name, this is my CV, and start straight away. Put your photograph in. Excuse me. No wasted space. Okay? No text speak. That doesn't work. Okay? And please make sure that you're honest. No lies in your CV, because, as I say, you will get caught out. And the other thing that I will add in there, no gaps, which I've mentioned before. Okay? There we go. No gaps. So I'd like to leave you with that. If you can dream it, you do it. I love this quote by Walt Disney. And so I'm going to ask for any questions, but before I do that, I'm going to leave that on the screen for a minute. So you have my details, my cell number, and my email address. You are welcome to email me at any time if you need help after the webinar. But yes, so then I'm going to stop sharing for now so that we can get to the questions, which is the most interesting part of the webinar, I believe.
So please, may I ask everyone, if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and speak to Kim directly.
Hi, Kim. It's Jenny Strauss calling or speaking.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi. Just a couple of things. In terms of a photograph, I don't believe it's important. I think it can be very subjective. Everyone has a different opinion of if someone's pretty or not pretty or ugly or whatever. I think if you're applying for a modeling job or a TV announcer, or where you're going to be seen by millions of people, then it's important. But I think it's a very subjective perception that people could make. I don't know how you've said you should.
I understand that, and you're not the first person to mention that, Jenny.
Yeah.
I add it for my corporate clients so that they can, it's not a fashion show, and I'm not judging you based on what you look like. I want to see that you look professional, and my clients want to see or want to know what's walking in the door when they do call you in for an interview. But 100%, if you don't believe that it goes on your CV, I don't have a problem with you leaving it off.
Okay. And then, sorry, I've just got two others. Is it okay, Tracy, if I carry on? Okay. The driver's license and a car, I think, again, in South Africa, to prevent someone from getting a position because they don't have a car or a driver's license. Well, I understand a driver's license maybe, but for a car, especially for a matriculant and a graduate, I think it's very hard for the majority of people. And if they're prepared to catch 2 taxis to get to a job, or catch an Uber or Bolt or whatever, it shouldn't prevent them from getting the job.
No, 100%. You're 100% right there.
Yeah.
The thing is, in an interview, I'm going to ask you that question. And
Okay.
if, for example, you are applying for a sales position,
yeah,
most sales positions require the candidate to have a car. But if you don't have it, if you write in there that you don't have one, it's not going to prevent you from getting the job. It just puts it in my mind that you don't have it. But guess what? I'm going to get 2 taxis, or I'm going to pay for an Uber to get there. It shows me that you really want this position and you're going to do everything it takes to get that position.
Okay.
So none of what you put in is going to stop you from getting into the interview. It just puts in my mind what you do have and where you're prepared, what you're prepared to do for the position.
Okay, but I
Does it
just
make
think
sense?
it's, again, the subjective part of it. So I don't put in any mode of transport. I'd rather let the person see what the qualifications and skills and experience the person has before making any judgment call, and rather ask, as you say, in an interview, how do they plan to get to a position? And just lastly, references. I don't think until you interviewed and a person's interested in you, should you put references on a CV, because from a privacy and confidentiality point of view, referees could be contacted for a whole range of other things. I'm
No,
not
I
saying
get
to,
that. I
yeah,
completely understand that. I have had CVs where it says, please don't contact a reference.
yeah,
And I will never contact a referee for a candidate until they have resigned.
yeah,
So until their
okay,
company knows that they are leaving,
yeah,
I will never make that phone call or send that
okay.
email.
But other people
And
might.
most companies won't.
Yeah, other
Well,
people might. So that's why I think it's better not to conclude it until there's some kind of interest. Okay,
I
thanks.
understand.
Thanks, Kim.
Sorry,
Thanks,
just
Tracy.
I'd like to actually say from our side, we do like. I think that it's really important to have license, because many times we will be looking for somebody with license, regardless of the skills. And the other thing is, references also gives you an idea of the caliber of the type of work, gives some credibility also to the CV. So I can see that there's different ways of looking at in different angles, but of looking at this. But I think that on a personal note, when I look at CVs, I do appreciate if they add their license and the reference, because it gives me an idea that the fact that they've written that they have work experience, it makes it more legit and credible. That's from my side. Yeah.
And if I
I
can
don't know
add
if there
to
are any
that,
other
Ariella,
questions. Sorry.
if I can add to that about references, I would rather you say references can be contacted on request than completely leave it out. If you're going to completely leave it out, I'm going to wonder what you need to hide.
Agree. Agree.
Make a section that says, I will give you the references if you want, but don't leave them out completely.
I think, Kim, you have really provided, and I'd like any of the youth, if they have any questions, but sometimes things that we take for granted, you presented here, and I thought, wow, actually it's important for us to be able to communicate that. How to put the certain things that we should have on our CV that many times I don't see on CVs that I get. So I wonder if there are any other questions or comments from anyone who's been part of this webinar. Any questions that you'd like to get clarity on, or something that was aha for you, or aha moment?
No questions, but I think, Kim, the way that you presented for us today was absolutely outstanding. And like Ariella said, there's so many things that we just oversee when putting together a CV, and the layout that you have provided for us to follow step by step, just gives everybody in the audience today an understanding of what needs to be included, the order that it needs to be included, and how some information is so relevant and just cannot be left out. I know that from your perspective, you are a perfectionist and you read so much. And one of the things that sticks out for me the most is the fact that you said, spelling errors. If you're applying for a position, an admin position, spelling errors, punctuation, etc., etc. So that really stood out for me. And I just want to check, there is nothing more in the chat box this morning. Does anybody else, before we end today's webinar, have any other questions they would like to ask him? So I have put in the chat box a little bit earlier. I'm just going to include it again now for everyone to join us for the next two parts of CV writing. And I think the value that Kim will share with us in these additional two-part webinars are going to be so insightful. The one on the 13th is for people that have lost their jobs, especially over the last year during COVID. And the one on the 20th of May will focus on CV writing for people that are re-entering the job market. So I sincerely hope that you will join us next week. And I'd like to thank you, Kim, for your time this morning. I know that you will share your presentation with me. Thank you, Ariella, for being with us this morning. And to everyone that has joined us, thank you for your attendance. And we look forward to seeing you